All right, let's jump right in. In a world that feels more connected and, yeah, more diverse than ever, we're all facing this massive question. How do people from totally different cultures actually live together in one society? It's a huge deal, and the main answer political thinkers have come up with is this idea called multiculturalism.
You see, at its core, this whole thing is really about fairness. I mean, is it truly fair to treat every single person the exact same way when we all come from such different backgrounds with different histories and cultures? That's the big puzzle that the theory of multiculturalism is trying to solve.
Okay, so when you hear the word multiculturalism, what comes to mind? Probably food, right? Festivals, music, holidays. And yeah, that's part of it. But that's just the surface. As a political idea, it goes way, way deeper. It's a serious framework for building a just society, and it's about way more than just tolerating differences. It's about actively recognizing them. And here's the absolute key takeaway. Traditional liberal thought, for the most part, focuses on the rights of the individual. But multiculturalism comes along and says, hold on, that's not the full picture. To really achieve justice, especially after centuries of discrimination, we have to acknowledge that people are part of larger groups, and those group identities need protection too.
So let's break it down. The first big idea is this incredibly tight link between our culture and our identity. The thinking here is that, none of us just pops into existence fully formed. Our language, our history, our community, all of this stuff is foundational to our sense of self-worth. So if someone attacks your culture, it feels personal, because it is personal. Okay, and that idea leads directly to the second core theme, which is where things get really controversial: minority rights. This is the argument that to get to true equality, some minority groups might actually need different rights than the majority. And look, the point isn't to give anyone special privileges. It's about leveling a playing field that's been tilted for a very long time. And finally, the third big theme. This one is a total mind shift. It basically says, hey, what if all this diversity isn't a problem we need to manage? What if it's actually our greatest strength? The argument is that a society with a bunch of different perspectives and traditions is just flat out more creative, more resilient, and stronger than one where everyone thinks and acts the same. But of course, it's not that simple. It never is, right? This isn't just one single monolithic idea. Political theorists have come up with different models, different visions for how a truly multicultural society should actually work in the real world.
So let's look at two of the big ones. On one hand, you've got the liberal approach. It says, yeah, culture is super important because it gives individuals more choices and a sense of belonging. But then you have the pluralist view, which goes a step further. It says cultures are valuable in and of themselves, period. They deserve to be protected just for existing, not just for what they do for individuals. Okay, so that's a nice idea, but how do you actually make it work without things getting messy? Well, the political theorist Bhikkhu Parekh offered a pretty practical tool, adapting the famous harm principle. He basically said, look, societies can and should accommodate different cultural practices as long as those practices don't cause clear harm to anyone. It's a common sense way to draw a line in the sand. Yeah, as you can probably guess, trying to put these theories into practice is where things get really, really tricky. And to be fair, multiculturalism has faced some powerful critiques from people who raise some very important and very tough questions. And this is where the critics really start to dig in. They ask some hard questions, like, when you give rights to a group, who are you really giving power to? Is it the everyday members of that community? Or does it risk just propping up old, maybe even oppressive power structures within that group? This whole debate really boils down to this one very controversial idea: differentiated citizenship. It's the notion that to be a truly fair society, maybe not everyone should have the exact same rights. Maybe some groups need specific accommodations or exemptions. This idea is right at the heart of the entire argument, and honestly, it's where most of the fireworks happen. All right, so let's walk through the big critiques. First up, there's a worry that these group rights don't empower everyday people, but instead just hand more power to traditional, unelected community leaders. Then there's the second issue, treating a group as one single thing. It completely ignores all the different opinions and lifestyles inside that community. And the third one is huge, a really powerful feminist critique. It argues that sometimes these group rights can be twisted to reinforce old patriarchal systems, actually hurting the freedom of women within the community. So after all that, you might be thinking, okay, this is some pretty heavy academic stuff. Why does it matter to me? Well, it matters a lot. Because this isn't just theory. This debate is happening right now, and it's shaping our laws, our policies, and the very definition of what it even means to be a citizen in our world today.
When you strip it all down, this whole conversation about multiculturalism is really about us trying to answer some of the biggest questions there are. Like, what does equality actually look like in a world that isn't uniform? What do we owe to each other as fellow citizens? And how in the world do we build a real sense of belonging when we're all so different? Which leaves us with the big, final question, the one that really sits at the heart of it all. Do we have to pick a side? Is it either protecting the group or championing the individual? Or is there a way to thread that needle, a way to have both? That's the challenge that every single diverse society is grappling with right now.